Have you ever stopped to ask yourself, what silent dreams have you let slip away simply because fear whispered, "Not yet"? How many times have you hesitated to speak your truth, letting priceless moments pass unnoticed, simply to avoid discomfort? When was the last time you allowed worry or criticism to hold you back from pursuing growth, love, or change, be it with family, at work, or among friends? If every single choice you make silently shapes your legacy, why do you let fear make the decisions for you? And if today were your last chance to act with courage, what regrets would weigh heaviest on your heart, the risks you took or the silent opportunities you ignored? Isn't it time to confront these questions and honestly reflect? Are you living guided by your own values, or have you become a silent passenger in your own life's journey? What would happen if, starting now, you chose action over silence and bravery over hesitation, moment by moment, day by day? 1. Fear is not the enemy, inaction is. Fear visits every life, no matter status, background, or ambition. In the private hours before a decision, under the silent stare of self-doubt, fear makes its known. But Stoic wisdom, timeless as it is, clarifies that fear itself is not our adversary. The greater threat lies in what we forfeit by standing still, letting silence fill the spaces where our voice and action could shape the world. Think of the parent who never says, "I'm proud of you," haunted by the silent worry of being too vulnerable. Relationships cool in the hush of unsaid words. A talented professional watches opportunity drift by, trapped beneath the silent weight of self-doubt in meetings where their insight could illuminate the room. Friendships wither as unspoken support or forgiveness builds a wall. Business ideas remain sketches in notebooks, never tested, nurtured, or even seen by the world, all casualties of silent inaction. The hidden cost of letting fear decide is rarely seen in a single moment. It accumulates in echoes, missed promotions, estranged family members, the unexplored corners of one's own talent. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." While society may praise caution, lifelong caution breeds a silent regret, far costlier than the scars that action might bring. Across history, those who have shaped society, artists, leaders, activists, met fear as a companion, not as their ruler. Rosa Parks, in the silent tension of a segregated bus, refused the comfort of inaction. Her courage rewrote history for millions, showing that a single act, though it may tremble with fear, speaks louder than generations of silent acceptance. Eleanor Roosevelt declared, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." Not because she was fearless, but because she recognized the cost of letting fear become her permanent director. This fight plays out in quieter ways too. The spouse who finally raises a difficult topic, risking discomfort for true intimacy. The employee who brings forward an idea, knowing it may be met with resistance, yet could uplift the whole team. In love, in friendship, at work, across society, each decision to act, rather than sink into silent surrender, reclaims life's potential. The pursuit of courage is not the absence of fear, but the pursuit of life in spite of it. Silence, when rooted in fear, is a thief. Inaction, not fear, is the true enemy, robbing us of growth, meaning, and connection. The Stoics call us not to eradicate our fear, but to rise above the silent temptation of inaction, for it is only through motion that we write our own stories and touch the world around us. Today, the challenge is clear. Trade the comfort of silent retreat for the richness of engaged action. Because in the end, your greatest losses are rarely the risks you took, but the silent opportunities you allowed to pass by. unseen, untouched, and unfulfilled. 1. Fear is not the enemy, inaction is. Fear visits every life, no matter status, background, or ambition. In the private hours before a decision, under the silent stare of self-doubt, fear makes its known. But Stoic wisdom, timeless as it is, clarifies that fear itself is not our adversary. The greater threat lies in what we forfeit by standing still, letting silence fill the spaces where our voice and action could shape the world. Think of the parent who never says, "I'm proud of you," haunted by the silent worry of being too vulnerable. Relationships cool in the hush of unsaid words. A talented professional watches opportunity drift by, trapped beneath the silent weight of self-doubt in meetings where their insight could illuminate the room. Friendships wither as unspoken support or forgiveness builds a wall. Business ideas remain sketches in notebooks, never tested, nurtured, or even seen by the world, all casualties of silent inaction. The hidden cost of letting fear decide is rarely seen in a single moment. It accumulates in echoes, missed promotions, estranged family members, the unexplored corners of one's own talent. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." While society may praise caution, lifelong caution breeds a silent regret, far costlier than the scars that action might bring. Across history, those who have shaped society, artists, leaders, activists, met fear as a companion, not as their ruler. Rosa Parks, in the silent tension of a segregated bus, refused the comfort of inaction. Her courage rewrote history for millions, showing that a single act, though it may tremble with fear, speaks louder than generations of silent acceptance. Eleanor Roosevelt declared, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." Not because she was fearless, but because she recognized the cost of letting fear become her permanent director. This fight plays out in quieter ways too. The spouse who finally raises a difficult topic, risking discomfort for true intimacy. The employee who brings forward an idea, knowing it may be met with resistance, yet could uplift the whole team. In love, in friendship, at work, across society, decision to act, rather than sink into silent surrender, reclaims life's potential. The pursuit of courage is not the absence of fear, but the pursuit of life in spite of it. Silence, when rooted in fear, is a thief. Inaction, not fear, is the true enemy, robbing us of growth, meaning, and connection. The Stoics call us not to eradicate our fear, but to rise above the silent temptation of inaction, for it is only through motion that we write our own stories and touch the world around us. Today, the challenge is clear. Trade the comfort of silent retreat for the richness of engaged action. Because in the end, your greatest losses are rarely the risks you took, but the silent opportunities you allowed to pass by, unseen, untouched, and unfulfilled. 2. Don't wait to stop being afraid before taking action. Life seldom waits for us to feel unafraid before calling us forward. In the silent hours of early morning, when the world is still and responsibilities have yet to rumble awake, many of us stare at the ceiling, pondering the risks we have not taken. What if courage did not reside in the absence of fear, but in the willingness to act in spite of it? This question is not just philosophical fluff, it is a torch handed down by history's most remarkable souls. Consider the boardroom, where a professional sits with a revolutionary idea locked inside, heart racing, voice silent, haunted by what-ifs. Or a father, longing to reconcile with his child, fearing rejection but knowing the relationship is eroding, one silent day at a time. In love, people sideline vulnerability, waiting for certainty and missing the moments that stitch trust. Even on society's stage, injustice persists not because outrage is absent, but because so many remain silent, waiting for bravery to arrive. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." But what if the doing itself is right, yet we delay, our hands still, our words silent? At work, it is not the fierce competitor who claims victories, but the colleague who speaks up, proposes, initiates, even when afraid of stumbling. In family, it is not warmth alone that mends decades of misunderstanding, but the first trembling step toward apology. In the digital world, we see activists rise, not because fear is absent, but because a greater purpose eclipses self-preservation. True growth comes not in the silent comfort of good intentions, but in movement small, imperfect, relentless. Oprah Winfrey's story is one of quiet beginnings and public hurdles. Fear punctuated each turning point, but her momentum, her refusal to remain silent, made history. Abraham Lincoln, burdened by doubt and ridicule, pressed on with actions that shaped a nation not because he was fearless, but because he understood. Action is the antidote. "Let me be" direct fear is clever and will always sound convincing. It will counsel you to wait for a better day, for all variables to fall in line, for your inner doubts to be hushed. But the only true silence is the regret of never moving. Each time you step forward, heart pounding, voice trembling, you teach your mind a powerful lesson. Fear does not mean stop. It means something meaningful is at stake, something worth pursuing. In families, at work, between friends, and within love, real connection begins with one small action, usually taken in the shadow of fear. When we refuse to let fear command a silent retreat, we reclaim our place as authors of our own stories. Action is how we move from silent bystanders to principled participants in our lives. Ralph Waldo Emerson urged, "Do the thing, and you will have the power." The power, then, is not found in waiting for fear to leave, but in moving forward while it sits beside us. So do not wait for fear to be silent. Let your actions speak louder. 3. Fear is just a story. There comes a moment when every person must confront a difficult truth. Fear is rarely a reflection of reality, but rather a master storyteller shaping a silent narrative beneath the surface of our lives. In boardrooms and bedrooms alike, within friendships old and new, and at the crossroads of monumental life decisions, fear weaves intricate tales of inadequacy, warning us and holding us back. Often, its voice is subtle and silent, but its effects reverberate through every untaken risk and every unspoken word. For many, fear conjures stories more persuasive than any teacher or mentor, stories of not being enough, not being ready, not being worthy. Consider the woman who sits in a silent meeting, brimming with ideas, but convinced her views will be dismissed. Her mind iterates the silent narrative. What if I'm wrong? What if they ridicule me? Left unchecked, these tales grow roots and choke out possibility. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Yet, how many dreams remain silent, never born, because fear whispered a ghost story of failure or shame? In the tight bonds of family, fear invents scenarios of rejection before we reach for reconciliation. A father hesitates to pick up the phone, the silent script in his mind warning of disappointment rather than healing. In the tumult of love, fear can linger between partners, feeding silent doubts. What if my honesty makes them leave? Every time these stories are relived, the narrative gains power not because it is true, but because repetition makes it feel real. Societal standards only sharpen fear's pen. Celebrities, icons in the public eye, know this intimately. J.K. Rowling faced repeated rejections. The world's silent consensus pronounced her a failure before Harry Potter found a home. Yet she continued, rewriting the story of her life against the silent tide of doubt. Nelson Mandela, enduring decades of silent isolation, understood that fear's stories, no matter how convincing, could be rewritten with persistence and hope. He said, "I learned that courage was not the absence of fear, but the triumph over it." Everyday people have their stories. A friend worried about changing careers. A mother anxious her sacrifices go unseen. A worker afraid to speak up against injustice. These are not just stories, but silent parades of what-ifs marching through the mind. Pause for a moment. The brain cannot distinguish between what is real and what is vividly rehearsed. If you silently replay defeat in your mind, you program yourself for retreat. Bhutan. Here's the heart of Stoic wisdom. If you can visualize failure, you can train yourself to see victory just as clearly. Confidence is not a sudden arrival. It is forged in the silent discipline of repetition. As Epictetus taught, it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Change your reaction, challenge the story, build a new narrative one small act at a time. Reverse the silent tide of fear by speaking possibility. This journey is not about silencing fear forever, but about recognizing its stories as fiction, not fate. The mind, trained by deliberate, courageous repetition, can transform every silent what-if into a bold living why not. 4. Discipline trumps motivation. The stories we tell about changing our lives often begin with bursts of motivation, a rousing video, words that spark a fire, a goal that suddenly feels urgent. But the Stoics knew, as those in the flow of real living soon learn, that motivation is an unreliable companion. It comes roaring in one day, only to leave you silent and stranded the next. Motivation is like a passing breeze, refreshing but never promised. What endures is disciplinia, silent, steady force, almost invisible to the outside world, but unmistakable in its results. Discipline is the quiet hero seen in the parent who rises before dawn, making breakfast each day out of love, not inspiration. It's there in the worker who, even when tired or anxious, consistently meets deadlines, treating each task as a chance to honor their word. Discipline reveals itself most powerfully in the person fighting private battles, the one who steps outside to walk off a dark mood, the writer who puts down a sentence even when the muse is silent. The legendary tennis player Serena Williams said, "Luck has nothing to do with it, because I have spent many hours, countless hours, on the court working for my one moment in time, not knowing when it would come." Her victories were not strung together by fleeting surges of motivation, but by an unbreakable chain of disciplined days. The Stoics would nod in agreement. Epictetus reminds us, no man is free who is not master of himself. Daily life, too, offers silent evidence for this principle. In love, it is not grand gestures fueled by passion that build trust, but small, repeated acts of care even when you don't feel like it. In friendships, it is the simple commitment to check in or keep a promise, especially when tired, that cements lifelong bonds. At work, it's not the rare days when productivity surges in, but the disciplined routine showing up, focusing, following through that forges careers and cultures. Why is discipline so transformative? Because over time, it rewires your brain. Each time you act while afraid or uncertain, you train yourself to see that fear is not a stop sign, but simple data, silent notification that you are stepping into growth. The more you honor your commitments, no matter how small, the less you have to negotiate with fear. Action becomes automatic, deliberate, almost silent in its power. The silent struggle between motivation and discipline is resolved the moment you become less interested in feeling right and more dedicated to doing right. The discipline of showing up, time and time again, eliminates the need for negotiation with fear. What once required a silent battle, do I dare, should I wait, can I do this, is now met only with action. Discipline does not shout, it moves quietly, creating visible results. Its echoes linger long after motivation has faded. As Aristotle wrote, "We are what we repeatedly do." Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Let your legacy be built not by 1,000 fleeting promises, but by the silent, unbreakable thread of disciplined action. In the end, it is discipline that wins, not because it's glamorous, but because it does not need to speak to be heard. 5. Fear is a signal, not a stop sign. In the journey through adulthood, navigating careers, raising families, tending friendships, and finding purpose, fear is a companion we all know intimately. For the Stoic, fear takes on a different meaning. It ceases to be a dictator of decisions and becomes a silent messenger at the threshold of growth. Consider the executive at her desk, hands trembling before a critical meeting. Her heart pounds, her thoughts swirl, and all the physical signs unmistakably announce fear's presence. Yet, instead of viewing these sensations as the enemy, she lets them serve as a signal. The Stoics would nod. Seneca urges, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." Fear, in its silent whisper, is not there to stop her, but to signal that she stands on the edge of evolution. She is about to cross from comfort to challenge, from the known to the realm of deeper capability. This pattern is echoed in family life. A parent, afraid to express vulnerable love or to set a difficult boundary, feels the tightness in the chest, the silent urge to retreat. But it's precisely in these moments, when the heart aches and the voice quivers, that real connection is possible. Fear's signal, when honored and not shunned, leads to renewed understanding and transformed relationships. Within friendships, too, the story persists. The prospect of an honest conversation or mending an old hurt sometimes brings silent anxiety. But those who step forward, acknowledging fear's pulse yet refusing to be silent or still, find that the bonds grow stronger, not despite discomfort, but because of it. Society often depicts celebrities as immune to fear, yet their stories reveal the opposite. Consider Eleanor Roosevelt, who confessed, "Do one thing every day that scares you." Her life was marked by the silent signals of fear, yet her willingness to lean into discomfort forged a legacy of courage and change. In love, fear signals that you are standing at the door of intimacy or forgiveness. To open that door is to allow your life to deepen in meaning. Fear's physical reactions: clammy palms, a racing mind, a silent throb in your chest air, proof not of weakness but of proximity to something meaningful. Growth is rarely silent. It roars in the private moments when you confront what you once fled. The Stoics teach us to question these signals. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If you are distressed by anything external, the pain is not due to the thing itself, but to your estimate of it." When fear appears, view it as an internal compass that points directly to your zones of opportunity and self-mastery. To pause and listen to fear as signal, not a stop sign, is to harness its power for change. The truly transformative moments of life are not found in the silent safety of old habits, but at the trembling edge where discomfort gives way to new strength. Dare to approach that edge. Growth begins where fear signals, not where it ends. 6. Build courageous habits. Growth does not announce itself with thunder. True change is forged in the silent discipline of daily action. The Stoics taught that courage is not found in rare, grand gestures, but is built slowly through small, repeated acts that challenge our comfort. This wisdom resonates with those navigating the intricate layers of life, balancing career, family, friendships, and personal purpose, where courage often wears the face of ordinary choices. Consider the mother who offers a heartfelt apology after a heated argument. The silent knot in her chest urges retreat, yet she steps forward, bridging the distance with honesty. Or the office worker who volunteers for an unfamiliar project, heart pounding at the thought of failure, but committed to learning and growth. These are not headline-worthy events, but each is a silent victory over fear. As Aristotle reminded us, we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. Building courageous habits requires deliberate choice acts, so small they might seem insignificant. Speaking up in meetings, even when your hands tremble, greeting a neighbor after years of silent avoidance, taking the first steps toward a healthier life when it feels easier to remain still. In love, it is sending a vulnerable message. In friendship, reaching out when pride would keep you silent. In society, it might be challenging an unfair rule or simply standing with someone who needs support, even when your voice threatens to falter. Powerful affirmations fuel the inner journey. Eleanor Roosevelt once said, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." Carry these words into your daily life. Repeat them as silent mantras during difficult mornings, as reminders when self-doubt grows loud. Each affirmation is a thread, stitching together a history that proves you are braver than you believe. Physical movement, too, ignites courage. A brisk walk, a dance in the living room, a stretch in the midday sun. Each motion quietly tells the body that action is possible, that paralysis is not your fate. By completing small tasks, tidying a workspace, sending that email, making the call you've delayed, you claim silent victory over procrastination and hesitation. Reflection anchors the journey. At the close of each day, take a silent moment to note where you moved bravely. Did you defy a small fear? Did you step into a space you once avoided? Celebrate these wins, no matter how quiet, for they suffocate fear not through grand gestures, but by starving it with constant, steady action. Over time, this layered web of courageous habits becomes a shield, rendering fear powerless. The world outside may remain unpredictable, but inside, momentum builds. Momentum rooted not in fleeting motivation, but in silent, habitual courage, forming a foundation that cannot be shaken. By building these habits, speaking, moving, affirming, acting, reflecting, you craft a life led not by fear, but by unwavering, silent strength. And it is in these daily, silent acts of courage that you become truly unstoppable. 7. Your legacy is at stake. Legacy is not crafted in extraordinary moments alone, but in the silent decisions made day after day, whether to let fear hold the pen as your story unfolds, or to live with courage, letting your actions leave a mark beyond yourself. This is the reality for every person, not only the giants of history, but parents shaping children's character at the dinner table, workers determining the culture of a team, friends who set the standard for love and loyalty. In these quiet encounters, your legacy is being written. Fear thrives in quiet places, growing bolder with every opportunity you decline, every dream deferred, every conversation left silent. The tragedy as Stoic wisdom teaches, is not that we are afraid fear is woven into human experience, but that we allow fear to decide what becomes of our potential. Marcus Aurelius, a man who ruled once the world's most powerful empire, wrote with haunting clarity, "It is not death that a man should fear, but he should fear never beginning to live." If fear is left unchecked, it is not moments but entire destinies that are lost. Look to the stories of those who changed the course of families, companies, even nations. Rosa Parks was not a stranger to fear as she refused to surrender her seat on that bus. Yet her silent resolve in that moment inspired ripples that reached the soul of a nation. John F. Kennedy faced the threat of global conflict with a cabinet divided and the world holding its breath. He confessed to advisers the weight of his doubt, yet in the silent depths of his uncertainty, took action that shaped history. Within daily life, legacies are quietly sculpted. The business owner who risks reputation for the sake of fairness leaves a silent example for every employee who follows. The father who shows up quietly and reliably teaches his children, not that love is fearless, but that commitment is stronger than doubt. The friend who reaches out after years of silence, the neighbor who chooses understanding in place of suspicion, each shapes a private legacy, the effects of which often travel further than words. Letting fear dictate your choices is more than a personal sacrifice. It means relinquishing the unique contribution only you can make. As Mark Twain noted, courage is resistance to fear, mastery of fear not, absence of fear. Your legacy, personal, familial, societal, is not measured by how often you felt afraid, but by what you did when fear tried to silence you. The world remembers those who acted, who moved silently but deliberately toward meaning, despite the trembling within. The greatest regret is not having felt afraid, but in having let fear choose in your place. Today, your quiet choices become living proof that legacy is built not by those who are fearless, but by those who stand firm, taking action in the silent company of their fear. In the silent spaces of our everyday lives, our deepest stories are written not with grand heroic gestures, but in the courage to take simple, honest actions despite our fears. The Stoics remind us, life will always bring challenges, uncertainties, and moments that make us want to retreat. But it is not fear that defines us, it is the decisions we make when faced with it. Every relationship strengthened, per every word spoken in truth, per every opportunity embraced instead of postponed, becomes a testament to our willingness to live fully. No one remembers those who allowed fear to silence their dreams or to paralyze their potential. The legacy you build is not created in a single day, but one small, brave step after another. Ask yourself, as your day ends and silence settles in, did you let fear dictate your actions, or did you choose to move forward, regardless of doubt? Remember, he who is brave is free, Seneca. Your journey is uniquely yours, and every moment is a new chance to turn silent hesitation into meaningful movement. Live so that, when you look back, you will find not a trail of regret, but a path paved by resilience, growth, and the satisfaction of having truly lived. Dare to act. Let your story be heard, not just by the world, but by your own soul. Let silence be where you find strength, not where your dreams go to fade. The time for change is always now.